Hi everyone, this is Raewyn and I've come back with a different video today. I've just watched a couple of videos that were older videos, one by Rachel at Roxy's Creations from her 100-day project in 2020, and then she'd been inspired by Tina at Shabby Dabby Doodah, and this has probably done similar things like this before myself, but they were actually putting some paper napkins onto tracing paper, and I know that tracing paper has a tendency to curl, so I thought I'd give it a go putting it on something else. So I've separated a couple of serviettes, just napkins, to a single ply, and I thought I would try some kitchen baking paper today and see what happens, because it tends to go quite transparent when you put glue on it. Rachel used some thick paper to put behind hers, which gave it a nice effect, so I'm going to try that as well. This is a really thick paper, this one. Just get a page of that, and I'm going to use some matte medium from Liquitex. It's a fluid medium, which I haven't really used this for a while, but I've always found it quite good for gluing things on. I know some people had trouble with their tissues getting a bit crumpled, and I know Rachel didn't like it very much and she liked using a glue stick more. I'm going to try this first anyway and see what happens, because I think that this thicker book paper will help to stabilise things a bit more. So just covering this with the matte medium. Of course you could use any other kind of glue. You could use some PVA or other kind of craft adhesive. It's probably easier if it's a little bit runnier, especially when it gets to the napkin. So I'm going to put that underneath here so that's shown through, and see what happens. Probably haven't got it glued completely, so I'll get a bit more there. Try and get my edges down without making too much of a mess. This gluing on top actually helps as well, and the glue will go through. It's going a little bit wrinkly, probably doesn't bother me too much, so I'm going to put some more glue on top of here and give it a reasonable coat so that it will hold the tissue, or at least the napkin, when I put it on. Right, I'll just put this one straight on and see what happens. This is one I think I bought the last time I was in an IKEA, which was a while ago. Where would I have been? Can't think. Somewhere in Europe, and I'm definitely not in Europe at the moment, because we don't have IKEA here. They keep talking about bringing it here. It's supposed to be happening sometime probably in Auckland, but I'm not really anywhere near there either. So you can see the text page through there a little bit. Putting the matte medium over the top gives it a workable surface if you ever want to do anything else on it. I'm trying to get back to some of my more mixed media, using up some of these different mediums, my paints and things a little bit more. So I'll give this a go, but it'll still be good for making some sort of tags and different things for junk journals as well. Okay, so that's the first one. See what happens with that. Of course I'll have to let it dry, seeing I've used a wet medium. Okay, this is my second one that I'm doing. This is an old children's dictionary that I've just taken a page from. So I've taken the second napkin that I had, and it just happens that both the ones I grabbed coordinate. Must be colours I like to go together, I think, when I look at them. So I thought rather than just covering it completely, I'll put a bit of each one on there, just separating the tissue out with a water pen, which is a good way to go around your napkins, especially if you're wanting to do some sort of intricate separation. I'm not really doing that, although the second one has got some patterns on. I've just taken quite a large piece of it to put on there. So I've got some bits to mostly cover it, but not completely. So I'll just put those to the side and put my matte medium on. So I do have some tracing paper. I might get some out. It's probably one of those things I've bought and not really used. I know when I first got it, I did do some printing on it and it worked really well, but I do remember that the biggest problem with it was actually gluing it down, is the curling problem that you have, and actually get it to sit down flat. But as I have got some, I might give it a go and see if it makes a lot of difference, or whether just using this very, very cheap kitchen paper actually is quite adequate. So there we go. Just get these pieces and lay them on. So whatever I do with this afterwards, I could make an envelope, make some tags, probably get quite a few things out of this. It's quite a big piece of paper. Don't really know what that's going to be yet. Just get this part of the job done, see how it goes. Oops, just sticking to me. And that one just in there. Get the brush and just get it glued down properly. Of course, napkins are pretty delicate, but be gentle with them. And a little bit of glue on top actually tends to help the transparency, as well as getting them well glued down, getting those little delicate edges down. Okay, so I'll just get this finished and then I'll give it time to dry and come back and see what it looks like. So I'm going to try the tracing paper. This is the paper I have. Took a bit of digging to find it. It's Canson 70 GSM, and you can see one of these things I've bought and thought, oh, don't want to use it all up, let's hoard it. But today we're going to use some. Oops, I think I've pulled out more than I want. So take one, and I've chosen again another piece of the dictionary page. And then the second one I'm going to do is some nautical tables. day, and I've let my tissue paper dry really, really well. I think this was the first one I did, just on this piece of text paper. It's quite a thick one, and the actual napkin that I've used is not terribly see-through either, so you can't see a lot of the text, but you can see something. I mean, this is what it would have looked like without the book paper, so I think that can just be cut down. I'm just going to cut it roughly, and I've got some other bits to use up as well. As you can see, the paper, I said in the first part of the video, this paper that I've used here is just a really basic, probably what you call a sandwich wrap. We tend to have two different kinds of baking paper here. One's the kind that you might use to line your trays if you're putting something in the oven. It's a little bit more expensive. This is the really cheap kind. I have used it in my printer, and it's worked quite well. It's actually a really good width to cut off to become an A4 piece of paper, so I have done that before, and it's quite a good substitute for some of the things that people maybe have access to in other parts of the world. So it doesn't look too bad, and that could be a nice envelope or something. I do have some bits that haven't got quite glued down, so I'll fix that. This one doesn't really need trimming at the moment. The text paper here is a little bit thinner. The whole thing feels a bit thinner, but you can actually see through. I didn't put the napkin everywhere, so that's why some bits are very easy to read. But it has turned out a bit better. Even with that same napkin, it seems to be a little bit more transparent. Don't know why that is. I guess it's all to do with the paper underneath as well. So as you can see, they're nice and flat. So with the kitchen paper, nice and flat. With the tracing paper, not so much. They do curl up. Now it's not too bad. I haven't got a whole heap of wrinkling. It's a little bit, but no more than I can deal with. This one, the tissue is in a couple of pieces, so there's actually no tissue just there. I'm thinking about maybe trying to iron it with some kitchen paper separating it from the iron. I might go and try that and see what happens. Of course it could go under a book for a while, but I just want to see if I can flatten it out a bit quicker. Right, well, I've been away literally about 3 minutes, and it did seem to help. It's still wanting to curl up a bit, but I think a bit of sort of coaxing, and once you fold it and make it into something, I think it'd be alright. Not sure about if it was a tag or something, but I think if it's made into a little pocket or an envelope, that could work quite well. Okay, so now just to decide what I'm going to do with these. I'll have a little think. Okay, I've decided to stencil some of this now that it's done. I'm going to use iPiper ink to do it, mainly because, well, it does give a crisper finish than using paint, but it's also dry straight away. Some of these stencils I've got by a company called Montaga, which is a company in Christchurch here in New Zealand, and I believe that one is one of theirs, and this one here, which I don't seem to be able to put the right way up. There we go. And the clock one as well. I think this one is from somewhere else. It's a different style. I think it might be the Crafters Workshop, judging by the packets I've got in my container. So I'm not sure which ones I'm going to use yet. These ones here are ones that I've cut myself. Got some arrows, some dots, and some little lines. I might actually use this one on here. I've got this big picture of a clock in here from the dictionary paper, which I'm not terribly interested in having there, so we might just try and cover that up a little bit. So just using a makeup sponge and put some of this ink over. Okay, I've done a bit of cutting and trimming and finding some bits and pieces, and I think I know what I'm going to do with most of these things that I have started. So this one here, I trimmed a little bit off the end, made just a little skinny tag, just with some regular twine, some string hanging out the end, and I think I'm going to use my envelope punch board to do the rest of it. So I left with a square. Let's double check. It's 5.5 square. So 5.5 paper size, 2 3/4. Fix that later. It may be a disaster and go in the bin. Never mind. Idea was good. It's back in there. If I forget. Let's just stick with some normal envelopes where we just, well, very basic ones that we just glue down. So this one here, this is where the book page has been ripped out of the book, and I quite like that, so I'm just going to leave it rough like that. So I've really just folded it over, make sure it was even at the edges, and I'm just going to glue down these sides using some tacky glue. Oops, left that open a bit long. Try and get a fairly thin line so I don't use up too much of the real estate of the envelope. And glue that down. Got the most simple envelope you can make, sliding all around the place, but it'll be okay. Just snip the tiny bit of the corner off. Not really shaping it, just getting rid of that little point that might catch. There we go, and that's that envelope. That can be either just used like that, stuck into a journal, stick the back down, or flick it over the top of the page. Right, that's that one. This one here, which is a little bit bigger, I thought I would turn into a file folder type envelope. These envelopes I've got, they're very cheap ones from our dollar store. They were a little bit too wide, so I've folded them over at one side. I was going to do both, but I didn't need to do both sides. So all I'm doing is gluing down that side just to make it the right length. I could have chopped it off and resealed the side, but I decided it was easier just to glue that down. It's going to make the envelope a little bit stronger anyway. So I've already done the other two. Let's put that lid on because it keeps bunging up on me. And then the envelopes are too tall, so I know I have to cut them down to a fraction just below the actual edge of the envelope. And check if that's the right size now. It might still be just a tad too tall. So let's just do it this way and take a little bit more off. I just know that when I use scissors I always get that little bit at the end, one end or the other. I'm never sure which one it is, where it just doesn't quite go straight. Bit of a hump there. I'm not going to stress out about it. Okay, so these are going to get glued down the middle. A bit of glue down there, and on top. And when you're doing this, you just glue down the middle, otherwise your envelopes won't open up like a file folder. Got a bit of glue oozing out the top. We'll just make sure they're okay in a minute. So just make sure that sits in there neatly, folds over. Okay, so now I want to put the glue on the back in the same way. Pull that up and okay, I'm not sure if I like the look of that. I might get something to put on the front of that one, even though you're going to see inside the others and they're not terribly attractive. I'll live with that, but I might just put something on the front of the let's have a look and see what I've got. That'll be fine. Widthwise, it'll be about right if I just take off this little white bit and just leave it from the edge. Should be about right. So just looks a little bit nicer. Now we're not going to see all that because I am going to now glue down the middle, but I'll glue on here because it's doesn't have to go all the way to the top of the envelope. And let's make sure that doesn't glue down. We have a little folder. Just trying to think of something, because that's going to need to be tied down. I might just keep using this basic string. I could dye it or to make it coordinate with what I've got there, but I think I'll just do it like this. We'll just get a bit of a length, and I'm going to what do I want to put on there? Just looking for some washi that might work on there. Maybe this one. See where I want that to be. And I'm going to stick it on the back. Put a little bit of glue to hold it. And then it will take once this is down, but I'll just put this over the top. And once that glue dries, it should be secure. I think that washi is one of the ones that you can get that need to be vandal art pieces. So there we go, that can have some little bits put in, be part of a journal. and I'll just do a bow on that. Sometimes I prefer just to stick with your basic things for tying. Not quite done neatly, but just to see what it's like. Right, so that's that one and that one. And this one here, I'm a little bit not in love with the way this looks like two eyes. So I was thinking that maybe this could be a piece that went around the edge of a journal. Let's grab something. So I'm thinking if it went around a page like that eventually, I'm thinking I might just cut it off on an angle and it will cut through that eye that I don't like. And the triangular pieces to the left may be enough to use for a little triangle pocket. And I don't think this is going to cut through both of them, so I might just do one and then cut the other one with my scissors. So I want to take it up to that corner, but down to about here. So if I put the crease on there, about there, should be about right. Okay, looks about right. That's what I was planning. So I'm just going to cut the other one against the edge of there. And then I'm left with a little pocket that can go around the edge, and they should work for a little tuck spot and something else. So let's get this bit of crease. And when that's glued on, it can just get glued on along the middle edge, along here, and this little bit helps it just be a bit more secure rather than taking that to another point. So that's that. They can be two other tuck spots. And then these ones I've cut into a tag shape, and I've done two of them already. I just cut the shape, they're all the same. On the back I put a little bit of coffee dyed paper just to make it a little bit of a plainer spot if anyone wanted to write on it. And the little cluster I'm just making by ripping a bit of brown paper just for a bag that's come from the shop. This bit is probably just the roll off from doing some jelly prints. They actually quite often end up being my favourite bits. It's a little flower that I had, and I'm just going to rip it just to make it a bit more organic around the edges. It all sort of blends in fairly much, but that's okay. And I'm just going to staple that first of all. I'll put across. Then I'll just glue down some of the bits so they don't catch. And glue the whole thing down onto the tag. It's really simple, quick little way to do clusters. Quite often do them in a similar way, sometimes including a little bit of fabric. And this one to go on the back. I just cut it a little bit smaller so you can still see the text paper. And there we go. It's 3 tags. So again, I might just do a very simple string in those. I'll use that same string that I've got. And there we go. So I'll do the other two in a minute, so you don't have to watch me do that. So out of the things that saw me cover, I've got some tags, another little one as well, a little around the page tuck and a couple of other corners, a simple envelope, another one with a file folder, and a disaster that I might be able to make something else out of that. I might just cut the little corners off and make it a wee pocket or something. I'll figure that one out later. That's not too bad. So you can still see the text through the napkin and the paper. Definitely get a smoother finish with just a plain kitchen paper. The tracing paper does give a different effect. Not a lot in it. I think it also does depend on the other papers that you're using. The napkin and the text paper from the book as well all makes a difference as to how it turns out. So whichever way, it all works. And whatever works for you. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And I will see you next time. Bye.